Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It's another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties for our first actual proper jam-packed weekend recap. Even though it's not official week one for the LTA, we still had stuff to talk about, even if it's a show match and a draw. So all four major regions, we had content flowing and going.
Monday is usually the stinker of the week, but let me tell you folks, the first Monday mega recap coming on through with all the major regions getting a little bit of action in there absolutely brings the hype for a Monday.
And we begin with the opening weekend of LEC action, and we'll take a look at what was the biggest draw viewership-wise. To the surprise of nobody, it was Movistar Koi versus Carmine Corp. It sounded like a soccer or football match in this one, as we're used to, with the Spanish versus the French fans chanting throughout. And for the most part, it lived up to the hype. Unfortunately, our boy Jojo Pian did not live up to the hype. He had, I'm not sure what to call it, a classic JoJo game, a classic JoJo Vayne mid kind of game, maybe we'll call it.
Probably the worst follow-up to what was a strong debut in the LEC for Jojo Pian. Good day one and into game two and day two here against Carmine Corp. And it was the complete opposite. My boy put up the Agent 007 up on the board. 0 kills, 0 charms hit, 7 deaths. My man, that is not the way that you want to be looking through for the Movistar Core guys. And especially because this is the one that matters more than almost anything, more than almost even playoff games. As crazy as that is to talk about this rivalry, the passion that is there, that is already established outside of events and sports that are not eSports and League of Legends. To falter in this one, to have a bad performance here is absolutely going to leave its mark, and not one of the best ways to welcome yourself into the LECC.
But how about the KC side of things? Now a 2-0 start, and Kalist is living up to the hype early. Vladdy, we're already seeing development from his rookie split. Closer looks like he's having a good time, and so far so good for K-Corp. Listen, their history, their first year in the LEC, a 2-0 start, we'd be losing our minds.
This is miles better for K-Corp this year compared to last year, and the major reason is Kalist down in the bottom lane and the angle that he is able to provide for this team with that damage and the threat that he represents. You see it, that confidence that he plays around that map, that intelligence that he has in the situational awareness. I'm seeing it written all over him. G2 is crying they couldn't get him on this team. This is one of the prime players that we're going to see in the LEC develop right away. I'm calling it right now. Fantastic early impressions.
Yeah, early on, he's got the clutch factor, the ice in his veins, able to make the right play in the most tense moments in a game. The other main headline is, of course, the G02 start. It didn't look like this was going to be 0-2, especially their second match against BDS. They get this clean ace, Broken Blades popping off on the Ambessa, but their setup around Atakan is pretty terrible. They forget how much damage he does, and they forget that Nuke has an absolutely nasty Orianna.
Yes, he does, and it catches almost all of G2, making them pay, really all the important members of G2 pay at this point. It's unfortunate for G2, but the reality seemingly is that at the start of this split in the LEC, they're a little behind. A lot of people maybe in their own expectations on where they would be in certain aspects in their synergy. Remember, changes coming through in the jungle and the support position for this team and how they're adapting to that change, the different voices, that different structure within your communication. And the other realization is whether, it's a combination of G2 being at a little bit worse than where we expect them to maybe rise up to. The rest of the LEC has risen up this year throughout the offseason. And one of the things that we have been begging for and claiming for that we want to see in this region is that higher level of competition pushing a team like G2. I think we got our wish right now when you're looking at the early situation, early landscape throughout week one of the LEC.
And obviously, even with 2 new members, G2 has earned themselves a lot of leeway. We've seen them have slow starts before, but I will say, by the time this is airing, we're going to have more games to wrap up week 1 of the LEC. If G2 lose to SK and go to 0-3, okay, then I'm raising an eyebrow looking at this going, huh?
I'm ding doinking one alarm bell if we're going 0-3 in this week for G2. I'm not going on the full, alarms all around the town type of situation, but it certainly will be a little cause and pause for concern when you're looking at G2 and realizing where they might now fit within the landscape of the ever-changing LEC.
Now, if you're a glass half full or glass half empty kind of person, you're either calling this next game the banger of the weekend or the fiesta of the weekend, and that is Giant X versus Rogue. How about kicking things off opening weekend with a 59-minute slobber knocker that included 3 separate Elder Dragon kills and a base defense against Elder when you're down 4v5?
I'll take the glass half full on this one, given that it was early in the year. I think a little bit later into the season, you might get a little bit more critical, a little bit less, a little bit more impatient with the result. Early season, you're just having a blast, seeing the silliness out around the Rift, and that's what I'm going to call this one between these two, because in order to get to 59 minutes, in order to get 3 Elder Drakes going on, there's a couple shenanigans happening on the Rift.
There's got to be some throws, some misplays both ways, but obviously got to highlight Lot's performance as a rookie on the Rumble in this game. He had 12 kills and, was the main reason they were defending the base a couple of times. He looked fantastic in both their games, really, and quietly, Giant X sitting at 2-0. Noah's looked solid. Lot we just mentioned, so feeling pretty good about this squad.
I'm excited to see where this one can go. This is a tentative potential for Giant X type of situation. Don't want to put anything too far ahead of yourself type of one, tripping over yourself in this situation. But for Giant X, much better start to the year alongside K-Corp when you're looking at kind of where the big changes to what we saw last year, and having a performance like that one, grinding one out against this Rogue squad, certainly so far is better for them.
And better for, again, bringing up these middle-tier LEC teams if they are playing at a higher level. The region as a whole is going to be raised to another level. One guy who's looking to raise the level of an entire region after 2 years away. Imagine the slander that Super Carry Doinb was getting when he announced his return, his exodus from retirement. He debuts against the super team Invictus Gaming, and this guy, just like it's 2021, pulls out the Rise, pulls out the Lee Sin, tank Jace, the perfect dark technology for him. And not only does NIP come away with the win, but let's be honest, Doinb styled on Rookie this whole series.
Boys, we're back. We are back. Doinb is in business, and he's busting out the dark technologies through Fearless Draft to rain terror on the LPL and our expectations, dismantling the super team of IG in their debut of what we were expecting to be a fantastic year for them comes immediately to question, with Doinb storming on back into the LPL, rolling through some old favorites, and really controlling this game from that mid lane position all the way through the commanding victories that they were able to pull away.
And, obviously Doinb being at that high a level after 2 years is very impressive, but you got to shout out the rest of his team who were playing at an incredible high level. Even more surprising, Leave and PP God, they were smacking Gala and Mako in the 2v2 straight up. Leave was getting solo kills on Gala. This was a bot lane gap across the series too.
And it's unfortunate because we've known that Leave is capable of this. Uzi's talked about him being capable of it. The thing was, he said, leave the girls alone. And unfortunately, we had a situation where that didn't happen. But now we are in a time beyond that where it is seemingly focused just on the gameplay. And the gameplay was clean from Leave in this series. And alongside him, PP God is another guy that we know has had very high highs in the LPL, be able to contribute and compete at that top level. It has been a year or two since we have seen him at that, intensity of competition. So to see that for this team, early good signs, along with, of course, our super carry and Doinb coming back, feeling good about this one in the LPL.
And obviously, this is just the first series for both of these teams, so we're going to completely overreact, but not sweeping overreactions. But, if everyone's playing at this level, then NIP, I think, will be a lot higher on people's rankings than we were expecting, especially when we did these preseason rankings. Doinb wasn't even going to be on this roster, but we're not going to panic about IG. The Shy's been away for a year as well, and the only thing that I'm maybe worried about for IG is the level of rookie. Now, we've seen him have some bad weeks, and then he turns it on, but if he's getting slapped this hard by a guy who hasn't played in 2 years...
It's a rough look to start out the season. I want to see more. I need more of this one to build out that runway room that you're talking about, because again, you can look back to even kind of last year on NIP for rookie and how things went, where there was maybe 1 or 2 weeks where it did look like, okay, are we on that decline? Are we starting to move towards the end? And then a resurgence right back to that rookie that dominates his lane and is that controlling factor for his team. So I'm waiting to see on this one for it, but I am exactly very happy that the debut for Doinb has worked out so well. And I think that this is just where we're expecting and possibly looking at a team like NIP for IG holding pattern on the excitement party for now.
Every year in the LCK, it feels like at least one team has an aura about them that even when it feels like an upset is coming in the back of their mind, you're like, yeah, but are they really out of it? And that was fully in effect in Gen.G versus BNK FearX. 20 kills to 8, even though it was only a 6k gold lead, and FearX were in control of this first game right through till near the very end. It just felt like Gen.G was hanging around enough that they were going to make one play, get back in the game, and absolutely steal a win. That's what they did.
Oh, this one is the most painful one of the week in the LCK to see this one drop for BNK. All the work, all the good performance and good early game action that they're able to get in this first one to build up that advantage, build that strong point against Gen.G in control until they weren't. And where they weren't was at that very end as they pushed towards the Nexus base against Gen.G. The death timers, they're staggered, they're separated out around. Chovy's gonna respond soon. What do we do, guys? Let's push it. Let's push it for, we can't push it. Someone dies here. We got to go back. And as soon as that control, that little grasp on the game, that handle, that momentum, that decision-making is lost, it was all about Gen.G. And we know that if you give anything over to this Gen.G team, they're going to take it and run with it as far as they can. Players like Chovy, players like Canyon, Mr. Ruler down in the bottom lane, and even Keen up in the top side, making the comeback possible for Gen.G.
Yeah, Diablo had all the money for BNK in this last fight, and it's honestly not even that terrible positioning from him. It's just the dog pile of CC from Gen.G is too good for him to escape. He gets blown up before the fight starts, and that is the door getting held open for Gen.G to get back into this game. And you knew after that ending in Game 1 that Game 2 was going to be a stomp, and that's exactly what it was.
I think this series was cooked, even seeing how long Game 1 was going on with the advantages for BNK throughout that one and the way Gen.G was hanging on that they would make it difficult. The way that they take and steal away Game 1, you knew it was assured undoubtedly that it was going to end in the 0-2, which of course Gen.G cashes in on and takes the match.
And let's be honest, even if BNK wins that Game 1, I'm still placing my money on Gen.G winning the series, but BNK absolutely should have at least picked up a win in this series, even if they didn't win the whole thing. It was a bounce back day for Hanwha Life against KT Rolster. It turns out we might have overreacted, or some people, I'm not going to say us, of course not us. Other people might have overreacted, thinking Hanwha Life are washed and not even good because they lost to Gen.G. It was a clear gap in team fighting prowess throughout this entire series. That was the headline.
And I think one of the best things, the kind of takeaway from this for me is for KT Rolster, there's a ladder. There is a peak to climb still for this team. If you want to talk about what level, where they want to find themselves, what zone in the LCK playoff establishing order that they want to be in, they're going to have some work, some improvement through this one, because again, on top of that ladder is going to be a team like Hanwha Life, who maybe they slipped down the first little clutch grab type of situation, but they found their footing and they're moving on up the mountain here in the LCK to challenge the likes of T1, DK, Gen.G that are up there. Hanwha Life gets that bounce back. Of course, Zeus, the one player that everyone is going to be looking at, really strong, stable performance from him. I don't think there was any questions heading into this series whether he was going to be able to. But again, people are looking for anything after a maybe lackluster debut for him with the squad. Certainly look better individually and look better with the rest of the team as a whole.
And to the surprise of absolutely no one, Viper against Docdom was probably the biggest individual gap in this series.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to shore up that type of gap, that type of situation. And especially when Viper's feeling himself and he's in the zone and playing the way that he was, there's no slowing him down. Unfortunate.
So now 1 week in the books for the LCK. Obviously, we have this group Baron versus Elder LCK Cup format, and we're sitting with 7 points for the Elder group and only 3 points for the Baron group. Now that's obviously Gen.G and D Plus are both 2-0, and you have BNK Fearex and the Bros both at 0-2 on that Baron group. Still many weeks left, but Group Elder, better start for sure.
Yes, there's no question about that one early on in this one. It's going to be all about that catch-up game. Can you get some of these squads like the Bros, like BNK, to maybe raise it up, make it a little bit more equal again? Of course, I don't think that is the most important thing, again, when you're talking about the LCK, more so focused on these individual teams. But, hey, it's all the fun of this new first season and the new event that's rolling on through.
Marquee headliner for week 2 has got to be Hanwha matching up against D plus Kia later in the week. Okay, that sounds pretty good to me.
Very excited about that one. Again, of course, D plus Kia, so many of the things that we saw were great about them and how fantastic it was. Going to be challenged in that matchup against Hanwha Life. Siwoo up at the top side, going to have to go up against Mr. Zeus in that matchup, seeing that one and how that one's going to play out. And again, another test for Beryl and how quickly he's been able to become the general commander of this team and how that works through the flow of the process and everything. Very excited about that one, circling it right now on my calendar.
Yeah, and obviously D Plus has the better start, so the trajectory is quicker for them, but we know Hanwha Life, the potential that they have is like championship level in the LCK and beyond. So excited to see that growth from them throughout the season. We alluded to it. It wasn't Ludwig and Moist Critical coming in to hype up the LTA. They didn't have that quick a turnaround, but we did get a fun little show match. Azael and Kobe drafting some players and only picking Noxus champions. But really what stood out to me for this little show match, it was only like an hour and a half long that they were even broadcasting, but they did the draw show for the first week of action, and seeing the banter between the players. The combo, obviously we know Inspired and Sven love to talk some smack, but the confidence and willingness to banter back and forth with the new young players, it felt fresh. It really does feel like we're moving into a new era of the LTA.
Oh, this is so fantastic because there has been a void. There has been a gap within the LCS for the last couple of years. Maybe call it the time since Doublelift left the league, and there's a lot of trash talk, at least with his personality and energy in the scene. We've missed this type of factor, this type of edge, this type of grittiness to the league and to the games that brings in a lot of drama, emotion, and eyeballs to the scene. And that's exactly what I think we're going to get in the LTA this year. And the best thing about it, it's not even the fake rivalry stuff that used to get kind of always pushed ahead by Riot in their interviews post-game and blah, 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 all these things. This seems genuine. This seems like actual stuff from the players. And that is very exciting to build these genuine rivalries, that intensity that should be there, the stakes for these matches outside of just win or lose, the actual pride that goes into it, the LTA. I believe we're going to start brewing that here.
I mean, you even had Jat with the producer in his ear saying, well, you got to move on. These guys, we got to move on to the next part of the segment. They keep going back and forth. But yeah, it's the personalities, right? Guys being able to lay it out there and, talk their split, as you will, to shout out the old teaser video for them. But that's someone you can get behind, even if they don't back it up. Being able to talk that trash obviously makes you want to root for a player. But they did get us the week 1 matchups. We're talking Team Liquid versus Dignitas. Dig was the butt of most of the jokes amongst all these players, because a lot of them have played with that org before.
It feels a little unfair. My man Dignitas survives They survived the culling of Immortals and everything else that's gone around, and we're still treating them like the dirt of the LCS, the LTA. We'll see about that one, but certainly a rough draw for Dignitas looking into that first week matchup against, of course, the returning squad of Team Liquid.
And again, this isn't like a crazy playoff bracket unlucky draw. You're playing everybody. It's just the order that you're going to be playing them, so it's really not a big deal. But then you look Further down, FlyQuest versus Shopify Rebellion. Nice little matchup. Okay, the new look. Again, Ludwig, Shopify that we talked about. FlyQuest will be huge favorites there, as you would expect. And then 100 versus Disguise is the fun matchup because you had XU and Sniper going back and forth. XU saying Sniper's just the mascot for 100 Thieves. He's just there in all the teaser videos. Okay, I mean, he's not wrong. He is.
No, but kind of hurts when someone else is saying it a little bit like that, and that is exactly why I'm very happy for this matchup. I think there's going to be some fireworks in this one, of course, maybe a little bit of all chat, but I think, of course, the thing that really is about it is 100 Thieves as that guest spot. How much can you market and show yourself out like that and be exciting, coming in up against what is a team that has a lot of the community and fan support in Disguised Toast, and their first real LTA matchup here for this one. Very, very much looking forward to this showdown.
Yeah, and then lastly, we had Cloud9 versus Leon Gaming, which if you're a scholar of old LOL eSports, this is like 2016 World's Play-In Stage rematch that none of these guys were playing back then.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone was involved in that one, but absolutely turn the clock back enough times, and you can find a time where this was a matchup that we have seen before. Interesting one for me, for sure, is going to be looking at your boy Licorice up against your old team up again. Very different in this type of situation. Excited for this one because, again, so many changes, so much difference with Cloud9 and figuring out, again, are you going to be one of these teams that maybe slides back down towards the middle of the LTA? Are you going to find yourself reestablished into that top 3 order of the LTA, who you're knocking off, whatever type of situation? And then again, for Leon, can you establish yourself in the LTA North? Can you start disrupting some of these teams that people already know and maybe are fans of, and build your own fan base and own reputation in this part of it? I'm very looking forward to this brand new showdown of what is an old matchup.
Yeah, and I think Cloud9, because people were so burned last year, expectations have definitely dipped from what people had with the Jojo Pia and Berserker lineup. And on paper, that should be the case. But nonetheless, excited for all these matchups and for the LTA to kick off next week. But that is it today.